Yeah.
Cool.
He loves sports. So I was constantly talking about what was going on in sports and what trades were being made.
Yeah.
And, I brought.
What sports? What are the basketball, football, baseball? What's his,
Sounds like baseball was going on right then.
Shane just wishes it was baseball because that's his
No, so I think at the time LeBron was leaving and going, and so basically he was a big LeBron fan. So at the time I was talking a lot about basketball because he was warning me that LeBron was leaving and whatnot. So we were talking about that a lot.
Wow.
So, you've worked a lot of jobs in your life, you said, on the questions we had you answer. And you have had to overcome a lot of fears in your life. So what were you in the middle of, or what were you trying to do with your personal life before this accident?
That's basically kind of like where the book had started, because I was 40 years old. I had the 4 kids.
Divorced a couple years.
Yeah.
I had been divorced. Yes, I'd been divorced, and I had a new boyfriend partner, and we had a 2-year-old son, and our relationship was ending. And the accident happened on a Wednesday. He was moving out on Friday. So it was like I was working a double shift because I was going to be a single mom of 4 kids. Yeah. And, normally our 4th of July would have been, a bunch of friends over and a barbecue and all those things. But, if I could get a double shift, I was working a double shift, and I was going to be I'd already been to school a couple years, college. I was waiting till my older kids were all in school full time. I had just started college. And I was trying to go into nursing. So I was, my life was kind of getting flipped upside down right before the accident to begin with. And so, and then even more because I spent every night that he was in Boston with him.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
I just basically uprooted my life, and we still had the other children.
And were they going to school at the time, or was it summer break, or how did that work in Massachusetts?
Right?
But then we're in New Hampshire, so but we had them shipped down to Massachusetts. But no, we were on summer vacation. So, like I said, my youngest was 2, so he wasn't in school anyways. But so I had a 2-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 10-year-old.
Okay. So Corbin is the oldest.
Yeah, quite the span.
Yeah.
A big span, because I had my first 3 with my ex-husband, and then the new relationship with the baby who just turned 5 now. But so it was a big span. Corbin was heading into his senior year of high school.
And how did that go? Like, did he have to put it off for a year or what?
So he didn't put it off. He put it off. So school starts around here, end of August, beginning of September. So he didn't get out of Spalding until November 1st.
Okay.
July. So that's, the book's called 121 Days. So basically from July 4th to November 1st, that's his spans between Boston Children's and Spalding Rehab. Right. So he got home November 1st. We had some health scares when we got home.
And was he doing like outpatient at the time, or?
He was.
Okay,
so we were traveling back to Boston every Friday.
Wow.
And he had 6 therapy appointments between OT, PT, and speech, about 30 minutes away from home. So he had 6 therapy appointments a week in Boston on Fridays.
That's crazy.
And we kept up that schedule for over a year.
And like, I'm used to the Western states, and the Western states are a lot bigger,
Yes.
But
we can't just travel over to the next state really quickly.
Yeah. No, we're about an hour and a half from Boston without hitting traffic.
Okay.
So that was our Fridays. So we were in Boston every Friday, but we kept up that schedule. And then on top of that, we added tutoring, about, I think, January,
and,
the whole
and
November.
Did that help him?
So we thought, it was hard. He was exhausted. You talked about the fatigue and whatnot.
Yeah.
He was exhausted. And we got to one point where I said, we've got to stop, because all of a sudden he was progressing so fast. He was getting better so fast. And all of a sudden we hit this point where his memory was getting really bad. And that's still what he suffers with, like short-term memory, but it was bad. It was a huge difference for me. And I was like, something's going on. And I went to the doctor and they said, we're pushing him too hard. So we started cutting back on the therapies to, 1 appointment a week per therapy. And then we started, we just adjusted, it's just kind of adjusting. He needed to sleep more. So we didn't get him up so early for tutoring. And the tutor was coming to the house. But so basically, he finished most of his classes before his senior class graduated. So Corbin he got to walk with his class, and then got his diploma a few months later because he had to finish up a couple more courses. So he basically did his senior year in about 7 months. Wow. It was 6 months. Yeah.
I'm just curious, what was his walking like? Like, was it affected by the brain injury, or could he walk? Yeah.
It was. So so basically when he got to Spalding, he wasn't able to communicate except, like he said, a thumbs up, thumbs down. There was no speaking. He had a feeding tube. He was on the trach. Physically, like, he could move from the elbow to his wrist. So he could, like, pick his forearm up and, like, toss a ball. But besides that, he couldn't sit on his own. He couldn't move his legs. He couldn't, if you told him to move his, he had no control over it. When he got to Spalding, they were lifting, and using
spasticity
the lift. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's why they kept telling you that he wasn't ready to go to Spalding, because they wanted to see further progress before they brought him there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because so Spalding, their pediatric floor, I think it's 11 beds. And so it's so small because just like Boston Children's, people bring their kids from other countries to these rehabs and these hospitals because, they're world renowned. Yeah. And so it's such high demand that they require you to be at a certain level before they accept you.
Oh.
So if you are not there yet, they won't take you. And so, but I also learned with a brain injury, that first 6 to 8 months is huge.
Yeah.
You can't just sit and not push it. And so for me, it was like, thank goodness they accepted us. And, he learned,
because you were persistent.
Everything.
Yeah.
You were so persistent at getting him in there. I think, you got to give yourself a lot of credit for that, man.
Like, they had no other option but to bring him in.
Like, this mom is not going to stop until
exactly. I'm going to stalk you.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not giving up. But yeah, I was funny because I remember it's not funny, it was amazing, but we were at Spalding for they want to evaluate everything. And so he was there I think we were there for at least 2 weeks, maybe 3. And they brought us in for another one of those family meetings, which I dreaded so much because I never got good news. Yeah, and they brought us in, and all the therapists sat around the table that had been meeting with them daily. They do 5 to 6 days a week there of therapy for an hour to 2 a day. And so they were pushing him. And so we sat at that meeting, and they said, it was slow building, but finally they said, he's going to walk out of here. And I said, he can't speak. He has a feeding tube. And I was like,
how is that going to happen?
I was like, do you do miracles here? And so it was pretty incredible. And they said that, and I was blown away. And so, and he walked out. He didn't have any assistance. We didn't put a ramp in our house.
That's awesome.
Wow.
His balance was a little iffy. And so, for going upstairs and stuff, maybe a little elbow or a handrail is what he needed.
Yep.
And we moved his bedroom. He had a bedroom in the basement, and we moved it up to the first floor. So he had access to the bathroom and without dealing with any stairs. But besides that, like I said, it was a little iffy at first, but now, and I could notice, like when he first got out of Spalding, you could notice the way he walked was, a little off. But now you'd never know.
Yeah.
Even speaking,
That's
you
amazing.
see him in person. Yeah, you see him in person, you'd never know anything
besides
happens.
the tracheotomy scar.
Exactly. You can see that for sure.
Yeah.
And so you said that you had, so did they remove a portion of your skull, Shane?
Yes.
They did.
Yeah, but they eventually put it back in like 3 months later.
Yep.
So Yeah,
but it's noticeable.
Oh yeah,
like indented now.
Well, I got hit by a baseball bat, and I was in a fight, and
this wasn't him playing baseball and somebody accidentally hit him.
Oh my goodness!
This was like a fight. And,
so what happened to my skull? It was they had to piece it together. It was the best they could, and so you can still see like indentions and stuff like that in my skull.
Yeah, they had, when Corbin went in for his first surgery, they told me that's probably what they were going to have to do. And we there's a lot of brain injury when we were at Spalding. Corbin had a friend who they kind of became buddies on the same floor, and they had the helmet on because they had portions of their skull removed for that reason. Right. Corbin lucked out enough that he had a monitor drilled into his skull at the first hospital. But when we got to Children's, he was rushed into surgery before I could even get there in my vehicle. And they put another monitor with a drain.
Okay.
So anytime that pressure would go up, I'm really familiar with that, the fluid in his brain would drain off into a canister.
Yeah. Like my mom says, they had to monitor me like all the time. And when my levels would get too high, they would like kick him out of the room and say, you got to talk quiet, and just everything affects it.
Yeah. It's true. It's so true. We had the first night we were there, I spent the night in the hospital when we got to Boston after the next surgery. And I have to say that hospital is so amazing because at our first hospital, that's what happened. As soon as, like you said, commotion, noise, anything just makes everything go haywire. And so they would kick us right out of the room. And as soon as I got to Children's, it happened the whole night. The first night was so touch and go. And I remember the first thing that stood out was like, every time it happened, every specialist rushed into the room and I backed off like I was just going to have to get kicked out. And they said, no, sit right beside him and touch him and hold on to him.
Okay.
Yeah. Give him comfort.
And we'll work
just
around
calming,
you.
Yeah. The calming
we'll work
effect.
around you.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. See, they let me do that. My dad was in the hospital. He passed away, but it's the same type of thing. I got to watch the draining fluid coming out of his head and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it was the same type of thing.
Did he have a stroke or what?
It was a stroke. Okay. And when they told us, he actually ended up with, they said he had at least six that they could identify infarctions, which means he had 6 strokes prior to that he never went in for. The guy had diabetes for 30 years. He was extremely unhealthy. Maybe I'll share. Maybe we'll do a podcast on my dad's death because I was there at the hospital for quite a while with him. But I got to watch the trach be put in. He ripped it out. Then they had to put in a bigger one. And I mean, I got to watch all that kind of stuff. But that was one thing that they said too. Like when you're there, you feel like you're like in the way, but they're like, no, comfort him. Like hold his hand. Like because it actually would help the monitors better. Even though he wasn't responsive, they know that you're there.
It calms them.
Yeah, it calms them. So I can relate to that.
Yeah, that was great. That was huge for me. It was like I wasn't in the way. It's like we will work around you. You are important also. Yeah. That was really nice.
Yeah, I still remember the touch of my dad's hand. Like exactly how it felt. Like it hit the size of it. I still. Yep. Anyways, I could cry about that, but we'll move on. We'll save that for another day. So, your book, what'd you say it was called?
121 days.
Oh, okay. 121 days.
And it's just about your perspective of Corbin's brain injury.
It is. Like I said, it starts, I think my first sentence is something like, July 4th, 2018, I was preparing to be a single mom. And basically it goes into it's very descriptive about me going to the accident scene. And there's a lot to it. They brought me in.
Yeah.
I want to read it. I think.
They brought me into the emergency room before his first surgery. And I found out later on that they brought me in because they were losing him and they wanted me to be in the room when he died.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I saw him on the table, just lifeless, naked, blood everywhere. Like I went through all of it.